in it. Okay, it is 6 o'clock. We want to get started on time so we can get done on time. So I will let Ms. Jennings take the roll call.
Vice Chair Jackson,
Present.
Chair Rod Stevens,
Present.
Commissioner El-Khalali,
Present.
Councilwoman Lum,
Here.
Councilperson Ramwali, Commissioner Ameri,
Here.
Commissioner Billups,
Here.
Commissioner Caldwell,
Present.
Commissioner Evans,
Present.
Commissioner Ottman,
Present.
Commissioner Santa Croce,
Here.
Commissioner Todoro,
Present.
Commissioner Walton.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Wonderful. Perfect. Does everybody have the agenda?
Yes.
Could we please take a look at the agenda?
It's front and back.
Okay. And if we could get a motion to accept the agenda, and then we can have discussion.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Anything need to be added? No? Can we take a vote on accepting the agenda for the meeting this evening? A vote, I'm sorry. All those in favor?
Aye.
And all those opposed? Carries. We approve the agenda. We are very fortunate to have City Administrator Howard Lazarus with us this evening. And before Mr. Lazarus begins to speak, and we appreciate you giving us your time, I just want to say publicly what I said in the email, so it's on record. I am so thrilled and delighted and honored to be amongst this group of people. You guys have done amazing, fabulous, beyond comprehension work to get to where we are, and I think we're in a good place. We're starting to review complaints. We are doing exactly what we're supposed to be doing. So I appreciate each and every one of you and all the hard work that you're doing, and we just keep it going. So I'm not sure who asked Mr. Lazarus to be here. I know somebody had some concern about the process.
I did.
You did?
Yes.
Okay, so would you like,
Yeah.
how would you like to address?
One of the issues, Mr. Lazarus over here, thank you for being here. I was reading the ordinance for the establishment of this commission. And on page 14, item 1218, consultation on leadership. I'm just reading over here, the city administrator shall consult with the commission before making a final recommendation to the city council. I am not over here objecting to the chief who was selected. I think any one of them would have been really great. The only time we were part of the process was when we were interviewing the candidates. We were not involved, we were not updated. I know in our June meeting, you talked about the legal process, but we did not have any updates. The only thing we got is whatever the newspaper had reported. And I felt that why we should know it from the paper than from the administrator. And I felt that, are we somehow following the ordinance that established our commission or not? So this is why I had this type of question to ask you why we were not either told, informed before the final recommendation to the city council. So that was my question, and I'm glad that you're here. You can shed some light on that.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to address the concerns that you have, because certainly our relationship is very important, and it's always going to be respectful. I'm well aware of the provisions of Section 1, 218, since I helped write them, and wanted to make sure that the process was inclusive. And I think I did comply with the spirit of it, if not the exact letter of it. And having confessed to being somewhat guilty, I'll offer matters in extenuation and mitigation over that. This commission was being formed, and you were included in the interview process, which I think qualifies as consultation. I also spoke to the chair and vice chair prior to making a decision. That being said, if your concern is that it would have been more proper to come and discuss the matter with the commission, I don't disagree with that. I think there are some concerns, though, when you're making an announcement publicly before someone has been offered and accepted the job makes that a little awkward. So that was a concern. Also, it's kind of between a rock and a hard place. I had a hard deadline with the previous chief's retirement, could not put someone in the position on an acting basis who was also an applicant for the job. So there are a lot of extenuating circumstances, I think. But having heard the concerns, certainly, while I hope there's never another occasion where I have to recruit another police chief, in the event that we do that, I will certainly make sure that we're in compliance with the ordinance that establishes the commission.
Again, I'm not really, I'm in favor of the decision of choosing the chief of police. It's just, I felt that maybe we were left a little bit behind in terms of not knowing the process. I know in the June meeting, because there were negotiations and all these things, he did not elaborate. But I think an email to the commission, to the members, just to say, you know, this is where tilting, that would have been sufficient.
And I apologize for that oversight.
Accepted.
Thank you.
Any other questions or concerns for Administrator Lazarus? We appreciate your time.
We might have a question.
There may be a question.
Could it be on another subject?
You mean when your section comes up? Is that what you're talking about?
No, another,
Sure.
other than
yeah.
the police chief stuff.
Yes, he said, and by the way, the police chief happens to be here. So we would like to also welcome Chief Cox. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
And please feel free to jump in if you hear anything you need to comment on. But yes, I believe that Administrator Lazarus said that he would be open to
Okay.
things other than what he was told.
Absolutely.
So at our previous meeting, we were discussing our budget, and I can't find it in the ordinance or anything, but are we in a position where we can draft what we feel that $50,000
It's 100, I was
budget?
wrong. It's 150.
The total budget is $150,000, which Councilmember Lum is 100% correct on. About $87,000 of that is for staffing costs.
Right.
So there's $53,000-ish left under other services, which primarily the goal is to put $50,000 in the budget for contracts.
Right, so that's pretty much, that's why I said 50,000, because I don't think we want to play with all the other stuff. But, you know, we're looking at doing a flyer so that we have things to give out at our community meetings and so on. So to be able to put together a budget, that would include anything that we do at the meetings, any printing costs, anything like that. We would just like to put that together. So am I understanding it correctly that we can establish the budget for that?
Yes, the number that was put in there, remember, the budget is formed in the early part of the year.
Right.
So the $50,000-ish was a placeholder. And the intent was you would figure out what to do with it as part of your work plan. My job in this is to assist you, and it's kind of ministerial in that, make sure that you have the access to what you need, you follow generally the city, not generally, but you follow the city's procurement rules.
Right.
Don't run afoul of the charter or other ordinances, but it's really not to comment on the content.
Right, so okay, that's very helpful. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Any other questions? Anything from Administrator Lazarus before he goes? I don't believe so. Thank you again.
Well, to echo the chair's comments, we all appreciate the dedication you put into this. It's difficult as, a new commission finds its way in the world, so if I can be of any help, please never hesitate to let me know.
We appreciate you. Thank you. All right, so I'm gonna, just as to that, the point of the budget, I'm gonna jump in right here and add that I did have an opportunity to speak to two members that I had in mind for working on the budget committee, and I would like to propose them, nominate them to the commission and vote on them to work on our budget and to be the representatives who present that for us. And that would be Commissioner Evans, Mashad Evans, and Commissioner Jude Watson. I always say her name, Walton. So, can I get a I make the motion that they be our, the head of our, budget committee. Thank you.
Second.
Any, second? Any discussion? Excellent. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you both. And thank you both for agreeing to do that. So any budget issues, any receipts, please make sure that those get to either Jude or Mashad so that they can work on the budget. If you have requests for money, and I know we're going to talk about the flyer and some other things tonight, so you guys might want to pay attention and take notes to that. Okay?
Sorry, one thing that, can I just check, I know that some funds have already been spent, like the Nicole conference, would you be able to get those to us as well?
There should be a copy of the budget in your packet tonight, I think.
It doesn't show what's been spent.
Does it show what's already been spent?
Can you
No.
speak to that, Denise?
The cost of the conference went under my fiscal budget for 19. So this is 20's budget.
Oh, perfect, so we don't have to, so we've got a clean slate.
What's the fiscal?
Yeah, I was going to say, what
So
is the?
July
I
1?
made sure I paid for that by June 30th.
So this is
Gotcha.
July
July
1.
3rd, yes.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Can I ask a question about this conference? Like, you mentioned, or somebody mentioned that there were $2,500 allocated, and that's the city, what the city approved. If we have that $50,000, why does the city have to approve how we spend it? Because you said that, and the other thing, like, I don't know who's going, and I cannot go, but it was never presented in this meeting that we have this conference and we have this money, and who would like to go, and I don't know who's going, which I think we should have, it should have been presented to us somehow, that this is how much money, who would like to go, and then decide from there.
Okay, I'm going to go with Councilwoman Lum, and then I'm going to let David speak.
Just to speak to your question about, who approves the budget and the budget approval process for the city, right, this board commission is not unique in the regard for how, unique in terms of how any budget in City Hall is approved. And as I think I had mentioned previously, so the City Council approves, the administrator presents a budget, City Council approves it, so we've adopted the budget for 2020. And after the budget adoption, administratively, but again, it has to be approved administratively, expenditures $25,000 and less can be approved administratively. Anything over that comes to City Council. But again, all expenditures, and this is good. These are good controls. These are important controls. This is public money. I have to tell you that, and to prevent, not that this committee would ever or anyone would commit fraud, but there are reasons why we have these financial controls in place and discipline. And so any expenditure would have to be approved administratively. That's just the procedure for everyone.
Okay, I'm going to interrupt right now because
Yep.
this is we're going into public comment, and I don't want to miss that. So I'm going to let David say what he needed to say, and then
Thank
did you
you.
want to speak, Ms. James? Well,
Just a couple of small points.
Oh.
I think in fairness to the chair and the city the option to go to the NACOL was presented repeatedly at the initial meetings that I believe you had missed, unfortunately. So we were all kind of told repeatedly, you can go and we'll pay for it. On the issue of the budget itself, I think it's already becoming apparent to me that, at least from looking at the complaints, that there needs, we don't know what we need to, like, we're not a regular business. We don't have lights, we don't have supplies, we don't have this kind of stuff. But I think we need to be careful about the categories, and I think we need to my sense is we need to leave some reserve to pursue some help with the investigations and the understanding of the complaints, which we have authority to do. Let's just keep some money for that.
Okay. Any other comment on that? I want to move on.
Just a quick question. Was the money for the conference out of the 19 budget or the?
19.
Yeah.
19.
19 budget?
Yeah. She
That's my
said,
understanding, yes.
that's why she had to get it in by the June date, so that we go.
So that budget's
Gone.
we have a fresh 50 or whatever it is.
Right.
53
Right.
or 52.
So fiscal year of the city start when?
July 1st.
July 1st.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so let's move on, because we'll have an opportunity to go back to all that stuff as we get into some of this. The review of the allocated budget is on here. So we're at public comment now, so anyone from the public, we welcome you and thank you for coming. Anyone who would like to make any comments, please do.
Yeah, I know your council is new, or commission, or whatever you want to
Thank
call
you.
it. And it's so new, I didn't really know anything about it. I mean, other than, what it's claiming to be. And I got a trespass notice, a 30-day, and it says on the bottom, if you believe you've been discriminated against with this trespass notice, contact this Human Rights Commission, which, and it seems like every step of the way, the one who was, the commissioner who was assigned to me didn't want to do, the due diligence. Go talk to the people, my witnesses, not just the people who issued the trespass notice, and their witnesses wouldn't go speak to them. And like he had an issue, and I didn't know you guys had your own jobs outside of this. I didn't know that, and that this is like pretty much volunteer.
Can I just ask one quick question, because I
Yes.
want to make sure you're speaking to the right people.
Oh.
You said on the form, it said the Human Rights Commission, is that correct?
Yeah, it's right on the bottom if you
We
want
are
to see
not the HR Commission.
Oh, you're not?
We are not.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We are, no. I want to hear you out.
Okay,
I just
well,
want to
this-
make
if
sure
this
that
is
you
not the Human
understand.
Rights Commission, that's
No, I
fine.
just want to make sure you understand who you're talking to, but we want to hear
I'm
you out
sorry, but if
because,
you're not the Human
can I
Rights
finish?
Commission, I shouldn't be
One of the
talking to you.
things that the HR Commission has spoken to us about is the trespass notices.
Yes.
And us possibly helping them with some action on that. So we would like to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, and, okay, well.
Thank you.
It's like they did not want to investigate. I mean, I don't know how much investigative power they have, but just ask questions to who I feel was the appropriate people who, who were there, who were present, who would kind of maybe refute these allegations that I did such and such. But it's like no one wanted to go do it, and the chair contacted me today, Ms. Strombaum. I'm probably butchering her name.
Leslie Strombaum.
Yeah. And she wouldn't give me any details about who she talked to, and she sent me a letter which she did not sign, because I figured, anybody who's gonna look into something would at least have the balls to sign their name when they're saying, we don't believe this or that, or we agree or disagree with whatever. And, she's like, you're not entitled to view or get copies of whatever we use to come to our determination. Then she starts saying the people were allegedly afraid, or, they're she's giving me all these excuses of why she wouldn't give me the information she used to come to this determination that, my claims, in her opinion, were baseless. So, I don't know. And they're just like, and it seemed like they were really reluctant, because like this is through, my trespass notice is through the Ann Arbor Housing Commission. It seemed like they were really reluctant to talk to another branch of the city government. And, and then when I said, okay, who'd you talk to when you came to this conclusion? She wouldn't say, So I'm like in the dark, and, why wouldn't you put your name on something you're sending me? And I talked to Miss Jeans more than once, trying to get to the bottom of this, and I don't know what's going on. And I know they're new, so.
Right.
Maybe, I don't know, I'm just speculating.
So it appears to me that the HR Commission will be meeting on Wednesday, September 11th.
Yes.
At
will be
7
here.
PM
Yes, 7 p.m. in the
in
basement.
the basement of this
Okay, I've never been
building.
in the basement, but I'll
And they
find
will
it.
also have a public comment time.
Yeah.
Where,
I will
and
be
Ms.
there.
Strombo will be there, so you will have an opportunity
Yeah.
to address these same issues
Yeah.
with the entire commission.
Yeah, okay, that is fine, yeah, because they definitely would, I know they're new, but I would probably say need somebody a little more forthcoming with the information, when they're saying they find no racial discrimination, which I find that hard to believe, and then they won't tell me who they spoke to, like it's a secret, especially when it's being used against me. So, I don't know, how you guys conduct their exact business, but if y'all can help them out maybe, or,
Well, if I could speak.
yes, please.
I'm also the liaison to the Human Rights Commission as well as to this commission. So if you come to the meeting on September 11th, I'll hopefully be there as well.
Yeah,
The Human Rights Commission actually helped create this commission here. And there is a lot of overlap between the work that this commission does and the Human Rights Commission. So I know there is a time that needs to be responded to that complaint, or I'm not sure
Yeah.
the actual due process. I don't want to speak to that quite, but if there is a need to address the situation sooner than the 11th, we can arrange to perhaps talk and meet about it. But I just wanted to thank you for coming and explaining your situation and letting you know that there is overlap between these two commissions, and you're not necessarily too far off base.
yeah,
We do have a common commissioner. Our chair also is on that commission. Just I wanted to make you aware of that.
okay, well, I will be there on the 11th.
Thank
Have
you.
a good one, thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to address the commission?
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Shirley Beckley. I think you all know me.
Can you speak louder, please?
Can you hear me?
That's better.
Is that better? Did the gentleman leave?
I think so.
Okay. I just wanted to ask a question of this commission. I think it's important that you know why you're here and the history of why you're here. And do you all know the history of why you're here? I know you know about the rest of the commission.
Yeah.
And I know you know, and Ms. Long.
You know what, Shirley? I would appreciate it if you share, because it would be better coming from someone who worked from the very beginning on how everything developed. So if you,
Well, I don't mind sharing. It'll take more than a minute and 51 seconds, so.
well,
So.
given that there's
maybe-
no one else here, you can have their 3 minutes.
I appreciate being able to come and talk to the entire commission because we worked very hard on this. And I know you know the name Ora Rosser, and that's one of the main reasons why you were formed after her death 4 years and some months ago. And we came before City Council, we being the community. And we also, we were directed to go to the Human Rights Commission, so we worked with a subcommittee with the Human Rights Commission, and we asked for this commission. And when they hired Hiller and Hines, we, the community, had asked not to have, what do you call them? We didn't want any police on the people that they hired. But Hillard and Hines were ex-cops. And we, the community, they did a survey and we were not happy with the survey. And so through all of that came out this task force. But before this task force, before that, which was a year ago, in 1970, I worked for Model Cities, and that was a federal government project to help with the kids in the community. And we had a bunch of kids in West Park, and the Ann Arbor police came through chasing someone.
You're good.
And shot one of our kids. They didn't kill him, but they shot him. And so in 1970, I, amongst a bunch of other community, came here asking for this Police Oversight Commission. So I just want you to know it goes all the way back to 1970, and here we are. Now, the task force worked very hard, as you have Robin here, and I think that's the only one that was on the task force that's here on your commission. And they worked very hard, and they worked with the community to try to come up with a proposal, which was basically, we didn't get what we wanted. We got some of what we wanted. Now, that's not to say that we're not happy that you're here, because we are. But I know with how the city rearranged that proposal, your hands are going to be tied quite a bit. So, since you all probably, if you want to stay on this commission, I'm going to be able to stand up and, I don't want to say fight, but challenge. I want to help you challenge, since I'm on the outside looking in with the information. And I want you to understand that you all are here because of us. You're representing us, the community. You're not representing the city. You're here because the city appointed you, but you're here for us. And I'm hopeful. I was listening to this gentleman here, and one of the things we wanted was that if people have concerns or get some kind of warrant or trespass, because trespass is a big thing too, that they can come here if they don't know what to do. Now, you referred them back to the HRC, and I guess that's what you have to do, I guess. But one of the things we really pushed for were that people could come here and feel free to come here and ask for your help in whatever their matters are. So I hope you will help this gentleman. I was looking at him until he said he got it at the Housing Commission. Because I ride the bus, I was at the Blake, and there was a gentleman that had mental issues. He was in his 40s, and he was issued a trespass and told he couldn't ride the bus for a year. And he thought he was under arrest. And so when the officers came, I tried to assist the gentleman and tell him he wasn't under arrest. So there's things that I think people can come here and you can help them there's things that I think you can do to help them understand what it is they're issued, what they can do to take care of it. And hopefully, in the near future, you all will be involved in helping that. Now, I hope, I said I wasn't gonna come, but I can't stay away. I put myself out here, and I am in touch with Ora Ross's mother on pretty much a daily basis. And Ora had 3 children. And she has one of her sons that plays basketball in Switzerland or somewhere. And they're doing quite well. And I just hope that this commission will have the stamina that you need to, I know you have to work with the city, but you don't have to always agree with them. And maybe you might have to challenge them from time to time. Because sometimes they'll tell you stuff that isn't in there, that isn't actually there. So don't be afraid to challenge. Not that you are, but I'm just saying from on the outside looking in. But there's just a rich history, and we fought so hard to get this commission here that I don't know, this is the only way I know to help you is to give you information and history and help in whatever way I can. And I will be sending people to you.
Please.
I will accompany them when I do send them. And hopefully, I think from the meeting I was last at, which is a few months ago, you still have to send the complaint to the police?
That's correct.
Okay. So I'm just clarifying that so I know what I'm doing when I talk to the people that come to me with complaints.
Yep.
So I just wanted to fill you in and let you know this is a deep history. It's a hurtful. And this commission is supposed to help us bridge the gap between the community and our police in Hawaii. I haven't met our chief, Mr. Cox, but hopefully I will on a friendly basis. And so that we can bridge that gap, because we in the community don't have that trust yet. And we need that bridge so we can work with the police and not be afraid and not be out here worried whether our children are safe. That's a big, we feel very unprotected. And that doesn't feel good. And that's why you don't have a lot of young people that come to you or come to your meetings, because they're afraid they'll be identified and harassed. So some of us in the community are standing here for them and try to help them through all this. But I just wanted to make sure that you have this information. Now, there's a lot of information. I'm just kind of pulling it together for you. And just to let you know, I'm not very much liked by the city council, but I didn't intend to be. I intend to be out here and help our community and to help bridge this gap and to help this commission help us bridge that gap so the police and the community can get to know one another. I grew up here and I'm in my 70s, and I can remember walking down Main Street and being able to stop a police officer for information or chit chat or whatever, and we don't have that anymore. So we need that back again, because I think that helps us bridge that gap. And it's important to bridge that gap so that we don't feel all this fear and scared to talk to the police. My grandson, who's 12, asking me, is it okay to talk to the police? Yeah, it's okay to talk to them, but you have to be very polite so that they don't get the wrong idea. But I think our police officers can help us bridge that gap. So that's why I'm here tonight. I'm not here to do anything but to fill you in.
Thank you.
And hopefully we can work together.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Shirley, you got 10 minutes.
Thank you, Ms. Stevens.
You're welcome. I think it was important that you all hear that, because I did sit through the task force, so I learned a lot myself about the passion that people had for this issue and how important they think it is. And so that's why it's really important for me that we're doing such a good job and we are trying to do better. And so we're always open to suggestions.
Oh, before, let me ask one thing. The conference that you're going to, that you walk in, now can the public go? I know we have to pay, but can we go?
I think so. I don't think anybody.
So
Yeah,
what
you
do
just.
contact you to find out?
They have a website. Yeah, I can give you call me and I can give you the website information.
Yep. So, all right. Moving on, has everyone had an opportunity to take a look at the minutes from the July meeting? The July 25th and the July 11th meeting? Can I get a motion to accept the minutes?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Excellent. Any discussion? Corrections? Anything anybody sees that needs to be fixed? Excellent. Can we take a vote? Can vote to accept the minutes from July 25th and July 11th?
Aye.
Aye. Sorry, you're right. That's not what you can say.
Call the vote.
How many of you are in favor of accepting the minutes? Aye. Yeah, any opposition? Excellent, moving on. All right, new business. Everyone should have a copy of the budget for 2020, correct? Okay. And we are so blessed that we now have a budget chair and co-chair, and they will be working this out for us. Building, why are we paying building maintenance?
Is this some sample thing?
There's typical, you want me to?
Yeah.
Okay, so every area in the city, there are various indirect costs that are allocated out, and this is one such cost.
Okay.
You know, we're sitting here in this lighted chamber, there's janitorial staff, these are costs that are spread across the organization, basically. There's things called municipal service charges, and so you're not being singled out.
What is rent?
So all 2310 through 2500 is all standard, no, just the 5 and the 200?
Yeah, you have this, as you know, for the 2020, which goes budget, fiscal year runs from July 1st to June 30th. This committee it's general fund money, contained the city administrator's budget. It's allocated approved for $150,000, and of that, basically 87,000 is spoken for. That's personnel related, and but 53,000 of the 150,000 is for what's called other services, you know, contractual work, that sort of thing, and then you have 10,000 for materials, supplies, and other. So
Can you say it again? 53 for?
53,000 for other services,
For services.
contracts, yeah, other services.
And then 10K
this-
for supplies.
10,000 for materials and supplies. and
1,000.
1,000.
10,000 for materials and supplies.
Well, it says
Where are you getting that from?
1,050.
Yeah, because there's a
It says-
thousand.
That's what you have.
We don't,
I'm
we
assuming
have,
that these are, you have 10,000 of this $150,000 budget, so I don't know what
This is
that number
only for
reflects. Is that what has been spent, perhaps?
What we're looking at.
Perhaps that's what's been spent. This is,
it's 50.
you spent $50 on postage.
The property plant looks like that's another allocated cost.
This is not
I'm
what we
sorry.
spent. This is
Property
what
and-
we usually
yes.
have.
Madam Chair,
Your budget is to work with
52.
for this year.
Yeah, Jane, my
I wouldn't
understanding.
get bogged down with the line items, you know?
I'm just trying to understand.
We don't see the same thing
So
you're seeing.
it's not here, but assuming, so we have 150,000, I realize there's a tilde in front of everything, we're talking rough numbers. We have 150,000, 83 is spoken.
87.
87 is
Personnel.
spoken, so that leaves 63, and now we have
What happened to the 87?
personnel that
Personnel.
supports staff, that supports us. So essentially, we have a $63,000 a year budget.
Correct.
10 of which is in a line item for materials and
Supplies.
and another 53
That's what was approved.
is there anything that what if one year we want to do something and we want to spend 20 on materials and is there, what is the process if we have to bend the walls between those
Develop-
two?
I would say develop a budget, and I don't think that is,
That's a problem.
because it's all general fund money,
Okay,
right?
fair enough.
What is, but here you say contracted services. What is a contracted service?
Outside legal counsel.
So we have the right under 1.215 to hire investigators.
Yeah, okay.
We also have the right
Okay.
under, that I missed last meetings, under 1.219 to hire a lawyer.
Right.
So whether we want to do that and need to do that is another question. It feels like at some point we might want to, but it's for that kind of stuff.
Right.
I would imagine at some point we might want to run a bunch of events, and we might want to spend 15 or 20,000 this
Right.
year on that, and 10 or 15. But what I'm hearing is
Can we,
essentially propose a budget for 63,000 divided up in ways that we think at this point might be appropriate.
53 or 60?
63.
63.
Commissioner
Okay,
Walton,
my-
Commissioner Walton, had her hand up.
I just want to double check, you know, I'm hearing a discrepancy between what I'm seeing on this page and what Councilmember Lum is mentioning of about 10 grand. Who is going to be the right place for myself and Commissioner Evans, if we're going to be working on the budget, one, to get clarity on that, and then also to find out which of these line items are allocated costs, because they're going to be non-negotiable and have to come off the top.
I think Denise will be able to
I
coordinate.
can get you a copy of the budget as well.
And she can also set up meetings with whomever
Right.
you all feel is necessary to, like Howard or whomever you
It
need
would
to,
be tough.
if you have additional questions. Okay.
Does, like, if we don't spend all this money, can we roll it over for next year or
No,
gone?
that's not the way it
so.
works. No.
Because some year you might need lawyers and investigators, and some years you might not, and that's where might be a lot of money. So if we don't spend it, it doesn't go, we can't use it.
It does
for-
not carry over.
It goes back just
You can
one,
ask,
and
you can ask
Osmond and then,
Councilmember Moore
yeah.
if there's, if I could speak, if there is an unusual situation, an extraordinary situation, you can ask council for additional money. But that's what's been, what we heard earlier, a placeholder that's been used for the budget for this commission. But no, if the budget is not spent, it doesn't roll over.
Carry over.
It gets returned.
Gets returned to the general fund.
Right. Commissioner Osmond?
I think, well, I had the same question.
Okay, no problem. Commissioner Jackson?
So I need some clarity too, and I assume it's coming, and I just want to make sure that I'm super clear. Whatever the amount is, 63, 771, whatever it is, Denise will tell us of that which is already allocated per city policy, building maintenance, et cetera. But I want to be explicit. Is it our purview as a commission to then come up with a budget?
Yes.
And dictate how it is spent
Absolutely.
and allocate that money, and then as a commission, vote to approve that budget? And within that, anything under $25,000, we are not asking permission to spend. Is all of that correct? I just want to make sure I followed.
My understanding,
Almost.
yeah, that any budget that's proposed would be reviewed by the city administrator, the CFO, and, you know, any amendments, you know, if you require additional funds, for example, as Councilmember Ramlawi said, that would obviously have to be a formal request, and to amend the budget, city budget's now been approved, that requires 8 votes of council. So there's an additional requirement for things like that, but I'm assuming it'll be like other departments, other boards and commissions, the Parks Commission. Mr. Santa Croce served on the Parks Commission. Staff would come to them with a proposed budget, and then that gets folded into the city budget. That's then approved. But in this case, you're doing it sort of after the fact. The allocation's been made, but the final approval would have to be approved administratively, I am sure. But it's up to you to propose, you know, how you'd like this money spent. But it would require administrative approval. Ultimately.
I do not agree with that. I'm sorry, Jane, and I understand that may be the rules or
City
whatever.
policy, yeah.
Right, and I will have a conversation with Howard about that and also ask the budget people, because my thought is that once they give us the budget, it's already been approved by you all, so they're saying, here's $150,000 or $60,000, whatever, to be able to function. So every time we want to have an event, I don't see us going back to someone to get approval. So we have, you know, community things that we're going to be doing. And if we need to buy cookies, if we need to buy punch, I don't see us coming back to either the city or council to get that approved.
Well, I think the process does then need to be clarified, because there has to be a record of any expenditures, and the CFO for the city, will need notice, and any expenditures obviously need to be accounted for administratively.
Okay, David.
So just I've had a lot of experience with this on parks, and then also at on the Farmers Market Commission for a number of years, Public Markets Commission. So and I initially bristled pretty hard, and then kind of understood the city's perspective. And I'm not saying there's not room here, but the city, like, we can't go out and buy 14 cases of White Claw, right? Right. Like there's things that prohibit, and for like any municipality, you've got to kind of. So there's a place in the middle. I don't think it's a question of permission. It's a question of, are these appropriate?
Correct. Correct.
And as long as that's there, then that's fine.
Right.
I think we're all right.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, Commissioner Evans.
I have 2 questions, one of which has been partially answered. When we look at the other commissions, how does this process work? What do they do? Or are there any protocols in place in regards to how funds are allocated, how they are drawn down? And I would also like some access to, I'm sure the city has policies and procedures on the handling of city dollars, because these are city dollars, which we understand, which I think would be very helpful for this.
Yes.
And the other question I have, if the budget year has ended as of June 30th, what about the funds that were allocated the year before? Do we have records of those funds, how they were spent, to give us a point of reference for how we move forward? And if there were monies left over from the budget year of last year, I understand those go back to the city.
Correct.
However, so that we're not starting from scratch, to have sort of an understanding of how we move forward from here.
So, Commissioner Billups?
Yeah, I think what drives a budget is basically your priorities. So us figuring out what our priorities are for the year, and then let that drive the budget. And I see that, contractual services is the largest bucket of money. I think getting a real description or understanding of what can be captured in that area, so that we make sure that we cover all the things that are priorities that we want to do over the next year. So.
Commissioner Jackson.
And just to tack on to what Reverend Evans was saying in terms of understanding policies and procedures, is it typical for whatever the 52,771 with which we have left after things that are allocated, or whatever portion of that, is it typical for that money then to have been allocated in this particular way without us setting our priorities? So for example, community outreach is probably our biggest priority.
Absolutely.
And there is no line item for that.
Right.
And so since this is the fiscal year July 1, and we existed in April or May, how did we end up with this pool for contracted services but nothing for outreach? And is that normative is really what I mean? Or
Other services, so it's.
see, I think we're looking at something different.
Commissioner.
So I've seen a million of these budgets. This is just standard I mean, this isn't any different than anything else. It's just this, they've given us $60,000 and made an initial determination, well, here's 50 for this and 10 for this. But what we just heard from Councilwoman Lum is, if we want to make 14 categories with different amounts each, no one cares. And we have to get it approved.
Right.
That's the budget approval process.
Right. Okay.
But basically, we have 63 grand to come up with a plan for it.
So then we need to go back.
Councilmember Ramali.
Thank you. Well, I mean, the question was, what do other commissions and boards do? And frankly, most of them don't have a budget.
Yeah.
A lot of them that I'm on don't even have any money. So this is unusual, for me at least, to be on one that has this kind of discretion and this conversation. I think it's important. I think it's important to get it figured out this year, because it's going to be the model as to what happens in future years. I mean, if the nature of budgets. I mean, you just look back at last year, and you think, okay, and you tweak it a little bit. But I think that's why this year, Jude and Mishad, you have a big task to carve out what's important, what are the priorities, and where you want your money spent. And then this one was a little unorthodox because the budget was approved back in May before we could have these conversations. So, but next year, I would assume that this body will give City Council its request, and it'll outline what you're going to spend it on.
Actually.
And Council will deliberate and debate. There may be some people who want more or less, and that's when it only takes 6 votes or 7 votes. But when you go to ask Council now for money, it's going to take 8 votes. So after the budget is approved, it's a lot tougher to get money. It's much easier to get your requests in February, January, March. Come April, May, it's going to be baked in, and then it's going to be much different when you go to ask for something. So, again, it's going to be important that what gets done this year is going to carry forward most likely.
Commissioner Bill?
Lum was the first.
Oh.
Before you, okay.
Okay, just briefly, thanks, and thank you, everyone. So the budget, this is all established by the city charter. The city budget is the city administrator's budget, which is then presented to city council. It's all established by city charter. We get the budget the second meeting in April. So the city administrator develops the budget. Council, when council approves it, if you go to the city's finance page, you'll see we ask a boatload of questions, and then we make amendments accordingly. We need 6 votes to amend the city administrator's budget, and then it's adopted. If there aren't 6 votes, it's the administrators, with the support for the amendments, whatever they are, the city administrator's budget is adopted as proposed initially. So I would just say that, and when does this work begin? There's a timeline for this. It's all laid out in the budget book if you want to take the time to check that out. We can also provide that information to you. But in terms of the process, council goes off and has a budget retreat. Usually it's like early December, and then the city administrator and his staff start developing the budget in January. So presumably, at some point, early next winter, this committee will have some feel for what's required to do this business, this work that you're all going to be doing and are doing. And I think at that point in time, it would be important to provide this committee's feedback to the city administrator as he is developing the budget before it is presented to city council. And then, based on what's reflected in that budget, if you don't do or don't like it, that's the time for you to then weigh in with city council formally. So my 2 cents on that process. And I will say also, Council Member Malawi, this is a bit unorthodox. I mentioned PAC because PAC, the Parks Advisory Commission, the DDA, we have just a couple boards that do actually offer input on their budgets, but that is really unusual, and in that regard, this committee's pretty, unique. Because as Councilmember Ramlawi said again, boards and commissions don't, they don't have budgets, but, you're funded through the general fund, basically. And so hopefully that's helpful just in terms of the process. And right, just given the timing of all of this, we approved the budget in May. The budget was presented in April, so it's before, we were in any, we were not prepared to have these budget-related discussions.
And I know that the task force, I believe, asked for almost double, like 300,000. We asked for quite a bit of money. And I was surprised when we got the 150. So, yeah. Council member?
Yeah, I would hope that we would at some point have the ability to just revise the budget as, I'm not talking about revising the amount of money that we get.
Right.
But if we know that we're allocated this amount of money for this fiscal year, that us as a commission and the 2 commissioners who are involved with making sure that monies go in the right buckets, that at some point, 6 months down the road, we would be able to say, we thought we were going to spend money here in this area a little bit more than we thought, and it's not shaking out that way. We want to put those funds into an emerging thing that we're now working at or doing. And so that we still have the power to do that. So I think there's 2 separate items. One is down the road saying, hey, we operated the first year and we need to come to city council and say, we really need $20,000 more in operating funds. That's a separate conversation than us being able to make some adjustments and figure out how this big area of contractual services, what actually fits into that bucket that we can throw as it fits into our priorities. So,
Great. Thank you. One last.
So I think that's a great point, right? Because could be 3 months from now, something bad happens, and we want to hire someone or 2 someones and spend $35,000 on that. So I think at least the budget committee should get some confirmation of Council Member Lum's sense that it's kind of fungible, but between whatever categories, as long as we get whatever level of approval that is normal for other commissions and similarly situated a little bit. But I think we got to be flexible because we're never going to spend $63,000 on outreach, but we certainly could spend a lot of that if something sadly and seriously goes down that we think is worth pursuing.
I agree. So what I would suggest is that we table this for the next meeting and have an opportunity for Councilmember Evans and Walton to be able to meet with the powers that be and figure out how do we make requests, how do we, if we need this amount of money, how do we get it, and how do we get things paid for? And Denise needs to be part of that conversation as well.
Okay.
So we'll table that and then look to set up a meeting soon. Okay? All right, so we're moving on. So the I asked that this be put on the agenda because at the HRC meeting, someone suggested, which I said, yeah, it could be kind of cute, that we have some kind of contest with the schools going back, and we give out some kind of prize. It's for somebody that comes up with a ICPOC name as well as a logo. So I said, okay, we'll put that on the agenda. We can talk about it and see whether or not that's something we want to do. Could be interesting.
I mean,
Councilmember Jackson, you have something on your mind?
No, not really. I didn't know we might rename ourselves. I didn't know.
Well, we
So that look was surprise.
okay.
We don't have a logo,
Exactly.
but I didn't know we were going possibly to rename ourselves, that's all.
Or we haven't named ourselves. The ordinance named us the Independent,
Right.
Community Police Oversight Commission, but people have been calling us ICPOC.
Ice pack.
Like the way that sounds.
ICPOC?
Ice pack.
ICPOC? ICPOC?
I don't want to be
ICPOC?
ice pop.
Commissioner Al-Khalali?
Like Commissioner Jackson, I wasn't aware that we were thinking about changing our name, but I am very on board with getting the young people of our community involved. I know you've heard it from me ad nauseum, but yay, young people, yes. I've seen a lot of success from asking kids while they're at their most creative to create logos, and if needed, we can modify or neaten it up, but I think it's a great way to get the entire community engaged.
Good idea. Other conversation?
I didn't know we could change our name, but like, it's hard for people to remember. It's a long name. And it starts with independent, and I don't see that we are independent, so it's kind of ironic, so.
I don't think that it's a change the name, because the ordinance is very clear that we are the Independent Community Police Oversight Commission. I think that they're just looking at ways of calling you that without calling us ICPOC, because there was a little discussion about that whole ICPOC, and I know it started with the HRC.
But the logo, definitely we need a logo.
Yes. So, what are people's thoughts? Is that something we want to? Yes, Commissioner Al-Khalali.
Quick question, did we intend to compensate anybody who designed our logo?
Actually, Mike, I actually had something on that.
They're making artwork.
Yes, Commissioner.
I would be happy to. I know some of the downtown businesses will donate gift cards.
Oh.
So I'd be happy to go to them and ask if any of them would be interested in doing that as the prize. If we were to do something, we want to give them something in addition to just the award of winning.
Right.
But I can walk around and ask for that.
That
Sorts
would
of
be awesome.
businesses. Because if they're bars and we ask young kids, then.
Yes, Commissioner Rumwally.
I just have a question. We were talking about getting literature made and ready, Commissioner Caldwell. This wouldn't need to happen before that. We can still get that out. I would hope it would be the case.
Yeah, we
I don't want
would
to jump
not
around on your
let
agenda.
this. No, that's fine. We would not let this hold up because I know that, and Commissioner Caldwell's going to talk about that they are ready to move forward with some community stuff. So.
Just curious on whether, if the schools and the busy schedules they have early on, whether they're going to have it on their schedule or their ability in their curriculum to do this, or would this be something they do outside of, I'm not sure. I don't know if it would
Would
be.
it only be
calendar would
elementaries
be-
and high schools, or would we also go to the university?
Actually,
kids.
look, this is not something that, I guess what I'm looking for, first of all, is number one, is it something that we think is a good idea that we should pursue it? So that would be the first question. And if so, would someone want to make some kind of, motion and second so we could discuss it in length?
Can I?
Go ahead, David.
Our name is the independent, by law is.
That doesn't change.
Right, so that doesn't change. Are we looking for a friendly, I'm unsure of what we're looking for. A logo?
The logo definitely.
A GIF of IPOC? What are we trying to?
definitely the logo, but if somebody could come up with something that uses this Independent Police Oversight Commission in a different way, then we would be open to that.
Okay.
Yeah. We're not saying that we absolutely are gonna change.
Yeah, no, I get it. I'm just
We
trying to.
can't change the name, it's the nickname.
I was trying to understand what we were
Yeah, the
exploring.
whole, the
Yeah.
acronym. Yes, Commissioner Akalali.
Motion to make elementary through high schoolers involved in our logo creation process.
Do we have a second?
Can you speak louder a little bit?
Can you speak louder?
Sorry, working on that. Motion to make elementary through high schoolers in the Ann Arbor area involved in the logo creation process.
Is there a second?
I second.
Discussion.
I think, if we want a logo quickly, that might not work, This is the beginning of the school year, and you have to involve elementary. Maybe you go to a high school where they have a program and talk to the teacher, be part of the program. But we want to drag it for a year. It's not going to happen fast, and we need a logo.
We do.
I don't know how fast we need it, but I don't think we should I don't think that we should determine who can't help us and have that be a determinant of what we do. We should decide what we want and then figure out who might be able to help us. Because I think there are some schools that would be able to help us
Absolutely.
fairly quickly.
So here's what I would suggest is that once again, we put this on for next month. I would like to recommend to the commission that Commissioner Al-Khalali be in charge of kind of mapping that out for us. If anyone would like to assist, would you like to be in charge of?
I would love to.
Thank you very much. Would anyone like to assist her with that?
I'll help.
Okay, you're on so much, girl.
Okay, she'll handle it.
I am absolutely
I'll be her
available for
wing
you.
woman.
I'm always available for you as well. So if I would ask that we table this to the next meeting. If Commissioner Al-Khalali, if you could come up with a plan for how we would do this,
Yes,
that you
ma'am.
could present, and then we can go from there. Okay? Any other questions about that? Okay. Put that on the next one. All right. Old business. I know that the trainings are being moved around or
This is
something.
for
Now what?
Commissioner Santa Croce,
Santa Croce.
investigative.
Is there any update in terms
Just
of?
what we shared, there's nothing ready off the shelf for people like us, which is surprising because most POCs have some sort of training regime of some sort. We have a private investigator who believes he has a lead on something that might work. And I was promised a response sometime by the end of this week, sometime next, about some sort of ready-made something that we can dig our hands to. Otherwise, it's going to be a whole cloth proposition. We might be able to sniff out this is something that this is a great example of an expenditure we might have to make. We might have to spend some money, and it seems to me the best to buy something that we can keep so that new members, as they come on, can get the same kind of training. We might have to spend some money. We've been trying for free, but so we're pushing forward. It's not easy.
Well, we had a training with Commissioner Teodoro, Jackson, myself, Santa Croce. Was that it? Was that it? Was anyone else there? Yeah. Oh, and
Mary, yes.
And for complaint number 4, which is our complaint number 1. And it was a good training, in my opinion, in that a lot of changes happened to the intake form because we actually worked with it with a complaint. So we were able to really see what other information we needed, what additional changes we need to make. Those have been made. There is another group that's scheduled to do complaint 5,
Right.
and that's Thursday.
Thursday at 6.
At 6, and I think you all know who you are. So we will do that same process one more time, use the new added,
Add-in stuff, yeah.
to go back over stuff to see what other things may need to be added. So we are at least doing that, and we found out on complaint number 1, they're requesting some additional videos and some other statements that they wanted to take a look at. So we've already gotten to the point where we're checking off, no, this one is not complete, we need more information, and seeing how that process of kicking it back to the police and asking them for additional information, how that's gonna work. So that's where we are on that one. And that was just one. But it was a good one. It was a good working session, I think. I don't know if anyone else wanted to add anything about what we did or what we talked about that might be helpful for everybody. No? Okay, so we're gonna go through it again on Thursday. Those of you who are scheduled to be there, you know who you are. I know you are, and Jane is. I'm not sure who else.
I am too.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we will do it one more time, and then we'll see where we are from that, okay? Anything else on the investigative training update? Yes, Commissioner, our council member, Wally.
That's all right. Commissioner Santa Croce, on your investigating the resources, what is the cost associated with something?
Well, we don't know yet. So the problem is we can find plenty of 40-hour courses to train people in basic private investigation, but that's not what we're doing, right? We can find, we can find courses on how to investigate an EEOC complaint that are made for like HR managers and corporations. But what we're asking people to do here is, there'll be some factual investigation, but ultimately how to read a police report and related documents, and then how to decide what's the kind of stuff you want to look at, and then how to understand civil rights law. So it's like or at least some basic tenets of rights and how to read police procedures and how to string them together. It's a weird set of skills, right? It's not a weird, it's an atypical set of skills only found by, only called for, that I've been able to find, is by other police oversight commissions, right? So what I'm trying to do is, I've been talking to someone at the ACLU, a civil rights attorney, a friend of mine, who has a private investigator who's posed this question. The guy's like, I think I've seen something. I've been on 1 million websites in 1 million different places to try to find things. Nothing quite fits our task. We may have to create something whole cloth. I mean, I'm surprised that, the other option is, I'm sure there's something that police departments do, including our police department, that would help us with this. The problem is appearances and improper, right?
Well, I mean, we can't have analysis, paralysis by analysis per se. And I know there needs to be a little bit of daylight between the police department and this commission.
Mm-hmm.
But I think again, I don't know, I know our police chief is here today.
Right.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
And I remember after one of our meetings recently, he said, well, have you guys looked at other commissions and see what the other commissions are doing? And I'm just surprised, I guess, that there isn't something more out there.
I'm surprised too. I'm not surprised that many people have a visceral reaction to the regulated training the regulators. And that's, I think, is the inherent problem in trying to get help from the very people, being educated on how to regulate and understand things from the people we're regulating. I think people I don't have to take a position on it, but I understand why people have a visceral reaction to that.
But, I mean, they do it well, at least they are trained professionally. And just to even get that baseline of understanding and training is rather valuable. And I think we could supplement that with some other training as well. So I would urge maybe this commission to reach out to the resources we have at our disposal, and not to be so, I don't want to use the word mistrusting, but too worried about the optics. I think it's more important to get the job done and learn, and know who you are and know what you're doing.
Commissioner Jackson?
I think one was first.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you don't have to defer. Well,
You sure? Okay.
I would like to, after you.
You can go, your hand was first. Okay. I think, so I was involved in the first training, and we did read police reports, but I do think it's important to make a distinction. I'm sure the police could be very useful, but we don't necessarily need to be trained to do what the police do. We need to be trained to investigate what the police do, and it's a little, I'm not playing semantics, it's a different job. And so the kind of training we need is not necessarily what the police could do for us. I don't think that means paralysis by analysis. I don't think that means that we're taking too long to do that. I do think that NACOL has some information out there that would be useful to us in terms of training. But I do think that we're going to have to look other than the police department to get trained on how to learn to investigate the police department, not even just for the appearance of impropriety, but because that's not the job we're doing. We don't need to do the job that they're doing. We need to do a slightly different job, but it's important that it's distinctly different.
Thanks. I would just share that, or observe whatever, that I too recognize that we all do, that the investigative job that this commission is charged with is different from the internal investigation that the police department and the city attorney's office does in their investigation. But I do also see the value of our understanding that process. And because again, as we know, I mean, the complaints are first referred to the police department, and then the police department and the city, they complete their investigations and then report the outcome to us, and then we proceed. But I think it would be helpful to understand what that investigation process that the city conducts looks like. And no one is suggesting that we would replicate that, because this is an independent commission again, as we all know, and our responsibilities are different. And since we do have Chief Cox here tonight, and thank you very much, Chief Cox, he has a lot of experience in this area. They've been at this in Boston for quite a few years. Perhaps he could, if there's no objections, opine on this topic, if you're comfortable with that. Just he might know what resources, for example, they used in Boston to provide guidance on their police commissions, on how they conducted their investigations.
And I will acquiesce to you, Chief, if you would just let me get the rest of the comments and questions so that you can answer them all at once. I think El Kalali?
Perhaps the way that we're approaching this or thinking about this could be modified. Because obviously we want an inside look as to how the police investigate cases, but we are technically independent from them, and I can see the value of both ideas. But I think what would be most beneficial is going in with the expectation of purely learning what they do rather than having them teach us how to do the job, if that makes sense.
No, it's just understanding.
Yeah, because what they can teach us isn't necessarily as important as what we can learn about them. That's all I got.
I think we're saying this.
Right. I don't have an issue with the police department educating us as to how they investigate. I think it's important for us, though, to look at other aspects, like even the public defender's office, right? ACLU. Who else can we go to? He can do a small workshop and say, this is how we do investigations, just to give us a broader knowledge base of all the things. So.
Right, and I agree with that completely, yes. Any other? Yes.
Just two things. So I think we said I think we do have to understand how they operate, how they document, how they refer, and how they investigate. And if And Chief, I'd love a chance to talk to you about maybe seeing what might be out there that you could, I don't have a problem with that. I think we got to find a way to do it that's replicable, because at the end of 2 years or 3 years, you know, there's some short-term start that will probably roll over. We're going to see turnover on this. So we don't want to recreate the wheel. We want to be able to go back to the board and also go back in a way that will work if we just get one new member. So we might tape things. So I think we need to plan it out. But if the how-to piece, how we do these things and how we document it, if people don't have an objection to that, I'm happy to start talking with the police department now to figure out how to facilitate that for this group, and then we can at least move that far into training to get the basics of what it is before we then get into how we investigate it.
Right, okay. Anybody else? Yes.
I just wanted to add a couple of things. One thing, and I don't know if others feel the same way, one thing for me is a little bit about the sequence of the training.
Okay.
If I do the police training first, that is going to set a foundation for me, and that's going to send things. So that's just one thing, is looking at what sequence do we do things in. And then also, speaking to the point of turnover, next May, 3 of us come off. So there will be turnover next year. We know this for next spring.
No. So they're not finite terms.
We have a 1-year term.
Yes, and I've yet to be on a commission where people with a term don't get reappointed if they ask.
Fair enough, but we should plan for the fact that there will be annual turnover.
Yes, that's
for
right.
sure, so.
Okay. Commissioner Hoffman?
I think I would echo Commissioner Evans' comments on this issue. Is we need to tap on all the resources what we have. First, we have the police, they have the experience with the incidents and reporting and taking care of those issues. ACLU is one. Maybe the university has something that would also use for, you know, they have the innocent and clinical, sometimes the law that helps people who needed the help. The other thing is what type of problems we are anticipating from looking at these issues. Are these problems can be resolved? Can they be resolved by the commissioners who are looking into them, or do we need to have to retain an outside counsel that would help us outside the city, outside the police department, in case we need to go back to some issues related to the law, related to, we don't want to infringe on the rights of individuals that we are dealing with.
Right.
And I think that the issue of tapping on the resources is a great one. Maybe we'll start with the police.
Good, okay. Anything else on the update?
I just have a question, like there's this national organization of police commissioners, and they are meeting in Detroit. Can we contact with their national office and ask, you know, I'm sure they provide training for other commissioners. I mean, it's already there, and you know, they have conference and they do a lot of work. Isn't there a way to connect with them and ask them if they have training, they have standard training?
I am actually meeting and having lunch with the chair of Nicola, who used to live in Ann Arbor, and so he reached out to me when he found out we had a new commission and we were coming, and he and I have already been in contact, and we are having lunch during one of the days of the conference, so I'll have an opportunity to ask him all kinds of things, and he has a flavor for Ann Arbor. He went to school here, so he, you know, kind of has a feel for, you know, what happens here. So once I have that, I think that I'll be able to get more information from him. Plus, those of us who are attending the conference will be making connections with different people and being able to find out. So we should bring some stuff back. That's our goal. But if everyone would like to hear from the chief, we can do that. I don't want to cut anybody short, but we do have quite a bit left to deal with. We don't. Do we want to hear from him tonight, or would we rather hear from him after we've got more information?
Maybe some specific questions for him.
Are there specific questions?
Maybe we could formulate some.
Okay. So it's up to you, Chief, does anyone have any specific questions? Can you, and you know,
Thank you.
sorry. I would just, here's what I have to say. I love Boston, been there quite a few times, love it. It's a beautiful city. It's not Ann Arbor. And I'm not saying that what you do there is not appropriate here, but I am saying that we are a new commission, we are our own town, and I would like to see us, I definitely would love to hear what you have to say. I'm not in any way cutting that down, but I don't want us to feel like we have to adopt what other people are doing. We need to do what's right for us, and we don't know what that is yet.
So the first thing I was about to say is.
Was just that.
What you need to do, what you think is in Ann Arbor, but I always start off by educating yourself on the subject matter. How can you judge someone on what they do if you don't understand what they were trained to do?
Right.
You know, are what they doing, is it right, is it wrong? Now, if you want to get into policies later on, what other places do, you have to kind of be, I don't want to say an expert, but you have to be pretty well knowledgeable about what it is that they were trained to do and how they were trained to do it.
I agree with
And then
that.
you could, you know, like the policing is, you know, we're the same, but we're different throughout the country. And that's part of the problems that we've been having in this country. And there's been a trend, certainly over the last 10, 15 years, where best practices are now starting to take over throughout the country. And so a lot of police, you know, body cameras, perfect example. You know, with only a few places did those. Now nationwide, a lot of people are doing it. Are they, is it really about good policing practice or whatever? But it is, I don't know, but it's about transparency, and it's become a best practice because it goes to transparency. You know, and there's some places that really don't want it, you know, because of the cost usually, but, you know, they're doing it because it's become a best practice. And there's many things like that that have happened throughout time. So one of the things about, you know, previous position I had when running internal affairs is that you have to really understand what someone's supposed to do, how they're trained before you can judge them. You know, and it really is not about the location you're in. You want to know best practices almost anywhere and everywhere. But it starts off by how are the officers, I would think, here trained to do their job. Because if they're trained to do their job in a certain way and they did it exactly like they were trained, and there was an issue with the outcome, then now you're in the policies and procedures. You're at a different level. So now you've moved over to what's it right or wrong to now are there policies and things that need to be changed and other questions. But it begins by how were they trained? Did they do what they were trained to do? If they did what they were trained to do, was it right or wrong? Mm-hmm. And if you're still getting no answers, now you get to, well, what are other places doing? You know, why are you guys doing it here versus, you know, where other places might be? And I'm not an expert in California, but I know a long time ago they did certain things because they had to cover a large area of the state, and they didn't have enough officers to do it, so they used more military-type tactics, you know, and the outcome of some of those things weren't that good, as you can see. It's not that the intent was to really harm, but based on the land mass that they had to cover, based on the number of people that they had assigned, you know, some of these tactics were, you know, pretty efficient for doing what they thought they needed to do. Now, you know, history, lawsuits, things of that nature totally changed that. Right. Changed it for a lot of the country. But at the time, I'm sure that they thought what they were doing was absolutely right.
Right.
So you really have to understand what people do, how they do it, and whether or not, you know, it's appropriate first and foremost. So, you know, if you learn what New Jersey is doing, and then we're doing something different, and you're saying, well, oh my gosh, if you did what New Jersey was doing, you know, you'd have been right, so you're wrong here. Well, you still haven't addressed, did we do what we were trained to do here? Yeah. But once you really understand that, then you're able, in my opinion, now this is opinion, but in my opinion, you're then able to go to the next higher level of judging it. Mm-hmm. You know, and that begins, but how are the officers here trained? I don't think, you know, the training that we were trying to show you all was about, I'm going to teach you this. I think it's more about, this is how we learn to do the X. This is how we do our job. This is how we're taught to do our job. These are our rules and regulations around that. So once you're educated on that, then I think you're able to make a better assessment. Yeah. And then you can go to the next level of, well, what are other places doing? How come, you know, whatever, you know, and then you can begin your search.
But if you begin to search every place else first without understanding here, I think it creates more chaos a little bit, in my opinion.
No, we appreciate that. I think that's good insight. Yes, Commissioner Alkalali.
First of all, thank you for... I'm working on it. Thank you for coming here to speak to us and answer our questions. I think we're all in agreement that we need a fundamental understanding of the policies that the police operate by. Now, Commissioner Santacroce, were we looking at the AAPD specifically to facilitate our academy?
So, no. We were trying to avoid, at the suggestion of a number of people here at an earlier meeting, I was trying to avoid I was trying to find a fully independent operation. I don't think it exists. I have been up and down the Nicole site. There's no resources. Now, the president may have a line on something. Frankly, as I was doing this, I was like, this would be a great cottage industry. There's some towns that there's some cities that you have to do a week of in-training to be, 40 hours to be on one of these commissions. It's very radical and not standardized. I mentioned it at an earlier meeting, and if people are into it, I don't think it's my personal opinion is I don't think it's inappropriate to hear from our police department about how they do things and how they organize. Basically, here's what you're going to be looking at. Here's the forms we use. This is what these boxes in the forms are for. Kind of here's how we do things. I think we do. I strongly believe, again, just my opinion, we need an independent third party to talk to us about how we might go evaluating conduct under those rules and systems that our police department. So I have no problem with that. And if someone wants to make a motion and direct me to pursue those lines or just say do it, I'm happy then to begin conversations with whoever in your department, chief, to try to set something up.
Well, so I last recall us discussing that academy where we'd quite literally be taught investigative practices, but we're pushing for a third party for that, correct? Yes.
Yes, we want someone to teach us how to,
All right.
someone else to investigate these complaints about.
Confusing Officer Mills Academy?
No.
Okay.
That's more of a citizens training, I believe. No, I think that we absolutely should better understand the policies of the police department, but we should also be mindful of how especially marginalized communities that we stand for would take it if we were quite literally trained in investigation practices. But am I getting these things?
I would suggest, and again, you all are an independent body, but think of any other profession. Step away from police for a second.
Yeah, that's right.
Think about any other profession. If you wanted to judge if a doctor did something correct or not correct, would you begin by looking in other countries of what doctors were doing?
No, absolutely not.
Right. So, or would you begin by going to the medical school, or where they were taught, right? So policing is the same thing. We don't make this stuff up. We usually have academies, and we have policies, procedures, and we teach to those. So when you understand those, you understand pretty much everything that we should be doing or shouldn't be doing.
Right, absolutely.
So then you're able to judge. Now, once you truly understand the location where you are and those policies and stuff, now you can compare and contrast other places, And then what happens is if you do that enough, 52 states, whatever the deal is, now you become an expert almost on all the different places and what they do and don't do. And there's going to be variations. But those variations are usually based off of the issues where they are, the locale where they are.
Can I speak to that? So we are hoping to have access to some of those policies, but we don't yet. And I know that has been, I understand they might be 5,000 pounds of paper, and there's some discussion about how to get them digitally accessible, et cetera. But in terms of thinking about how to start at home, that is one of the things that we've been waiting on to have our access to those policies, not just the table of contents, which is what we have thus far. So I always want to follow up on that as you were talking about it.
Yes. And you know, to be honest, I think it's important that you do get that. But I think, you know, we have to make sure that, you know, we get it to you. And I just got here as far as the mechanisms for making it happen. You know, it might take a second, but we're working on that, getting there. But I agree. How's that? So.
Well, I have to say this, and this is with all due respect, we don't have a second.
Okay.
And you have other people who can help us with this, and we've been asking for it for quite a little while now. So if we could get some clarity and a date certain. We were told there was a meeting on Tuesday that would give us, did that happen or not?
I'm sorry. Did I tell you that, or did someone else?
Okay. Okay, it was supposed to be with Bonnie and some other people. Yeah. So we'll follow up on that. But, and again, all due respect to you, but whoever, Jason, whoever can do it, we've got to have those, it's holding us up, and it's unacceptable.
Well, I understand, but I'm of the school.
There's no but,
It's better
sir.
to be
I'm
right
sorry. There's no but.
than to be fast
Chief Cox,
sometimes.
there's no but.
All right, no, I understand.
Okay, I just want to make sure we're clear. There's no but.
This is what makes you all independent.
Exactly.
That's right. And I
Thank you very
appreciate
much.
that.
There's no but. We got to have them.
Right.
So just
Thank you.
one more clarifying question.
Yeah.
And we got to have them soon.
I hear you.
All right. So I absolutely don't believe that understanding practices within our community and our policing is a point of contention. Like, I think we're all in agreement of that. So I guess, are you in favor of facilitating, I suppose, a training and investigation?
Well, so,
No?
yeah, I don't.
Is this what we're just...
All right, you know what? It is, Chief Cox, really, I love you and thank you for coming.
I know you got stuff to do.
We have got to move on. You were not on the docket, You were not on the agenda, I'm sorry. And we have to move on. We've got a lot of stuff we need to cover yet.
Okay.
I will we're going to follow up with Bonnie to see where we are on the policies and procedures. If it continues to be an issue, you know you will be hearing from me, correct?
I expect it.
Thank you.
All right, thank
Appreciate
you.
All right, so we will continue to work on the investigative training and continue to update that. And I'm going to be pushing us kind of quickly to make sure we get through everything. Community outreach update.
So, I have two.
Is your thing on?
Yes.
Okay.
Hello?
Yes.
So I have 2 dates and times confirmed for community outreach meeting. The first will be Friday, September 27th at Westgate Library's West Side Room. And that's 2503 Jackson Road. And it will be 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m.
6 to 7:30?
Westgate Library.
Westgate Library, okay.
Now the question about a food budget for that specific event. When you
Can
book,
you, I'm not really hearing
Talk
you
louder,
well.
sorry.
You know.
When you book events for the Ann Arbor District Library, if you have food, they do charge a $75 cleaning fee. And I kind of want to input on that because I'm not sure we want to pay a cleaning fee. If that's more than the snacks or whatever we'll use to have at the event.
Can you tell me, tell us what you envision, what you see at this event? Like, how do you see us interacting with the public?
Okay. So I plan on it being like an hour to an hour and a half, and the first 15 to 20 minutes being informing the public about what we do, like the history behind it, why we have the commission, and about a 30-minute portion of it being just public input and maybe issues they're having, and us acting as liaison between the community and police, and bring that back to the commission. And then another 20-minute portion being where to find a complaint, how to file a complaint, and how that process works, and answering questions.
Okay. So it doesn't sound to me like this is something where you were like, you know, having dinner or sandwiches or anything like that. Was it more of a cookies and punch and something like that? Just
Well, I would like for us to do that, but like I said, I would want to input on the fact that there's like a $75 cleaning fee, and I don't think the snacks that we would purchase would be more than $75.
True that.
You know, so yeah.
Okay, so for this one, then maybe no snacks? Is that what you're thinking? Okay. Any questions about that?
How are we going to reach people? Who's going to come there? Because initially, I remember that we were going to do it at the, you know, either at the church or at the community center. But this is the library, the Westgate Library, and I'm very familiar with the library. So who are our target audience to come there? I don't think we discussed that yet.
Yeah, I think next time we meet as an outreach committee, we can discuss how we're going to do the recruitment for it. Now that we have a date locked in, we have a month to do the recruiting for people to attend. I think the fact that it's in a shopping center versus a community, yeah, we may have a different population, but you know, it's probably a good chance we can get people to come in if we have the proper signage and stuff like that. Okay. The second date I have is Thursday, October 24th, and that's Bryant Community Center. Now, I do understand that we have a commission meeting on the 24th. Now, when I looked at my calendar, there were 2 dates for October. I do have alternative dates that they're okay with, and that's October 30th and October 17th. So if we don't move that 24th date, then we can just go ahead with it, or if we do move the October 24th date, I can move that date.
Okay.
Which community center?
Bryant Community Center.
Bryant Community Center.
Thank you.
And that's 3 West Eden Court.
And with that one, do you envision it being kind of the same presentation?
Yes, the same presentation. I envision each presentation being pretty much the same at each location, just touching each side of town.
Okay. Any other questions about that? Yes.
Just a quick question. Is there any, obviously love to come out and support. Is there any issue with having quorum at these? Do we have to balance who goes and have a certain, even though we wouldn't be discussing anything, we'd be talking to the community, we still have to have?
I believe, and I will get some clarity to make sure that we cannot have a forum. What if, and this is just a what if, a person in the community brought up an issue that then, led into some serious discussion, blah, blah, blah. We have to make sure that that doesn't happen. So but I will get some clarity on this. No. Yes.
I think, I forget what the advance notice time is before a meeting is required, but basically, as long as it's publicly noticed in advance, you're not violating any sort of, Open Meetings Act or, quorum kind of rules, you're fine.
Okay.
There's never been a city event that a quorum of council members have shown up to?
Of course.
And so, I think you're right. We have to understand that we can't sit around and substantively discuss.
You're not going to be deliberating or,
Yeah,
right.
but I don't think there's.
It's different.
Make a decision.
We can go to a.
You're fine.
We're fine.
Okay.
I agree.
All right, so please put both of those on your calendar. And Commissioner Billups.
Yeah, can I suggest that the outreach committee use maybe CTN also to publicize these dates? And ask, because I know Peace is still looking for our date that we'll do, but ask each one of the community centers to use their social media as a way to publicize it too, would be a good thing to do, so.
Okay. And Commissioner Caldwell, please let each and every one of us know how we can help you. If you need somebody, if you need people there early to help set up, I'm all in. If you need, whatever you need, let us know. Okay. Anything else on that you'd like to share?
I'll be speaking with someone from Avalon, which is the Caraway Community Center, this Friday to discuss a November date for them.
Wonderful. Any other questions? Yes?
Just like to thank you, Mr. Caldwell, for all your work on this, and you're doing a nice job. And also offer, if I can do this, that I'm sure the city communications department and officer, Lisa Wandresh is her name, could assist with issuing a press release if you'd like.
Okay, thank you.
Do we want the police at these or no?
My initial thoughts are if they are there, be dressed down,
Okay. So not in uniform, maybe? Okay.
We have a brochure, Francis.
We're gonna get to that.
Oh, okay.
All right, so, anything else on that, Commissioner Caldwell? And again, thank you, you're doing an awesome job, we're here to help. So yes, let's get to social media. We'll get there quickly and
So we
efficiently.
have for your perusal our first draft of a resolution to establish social media criteria for this group. And we expect that you will add your thoughts, your comments, any changes that you'd like to see. But this was the first draft at looking at it. A couple of points. We did mention some specific social media outlets that we expect to use. However, we did want to leave it open because what we want is for this resolution to work going forward. We have no idea what social media might exist in the future, if there's something more appropriate. So we certainly wanted to have that caveat in there that there may be something more appropriate in the future, so this is not considered exhaustive. And we expect that there will be 3 commissioners who will work on the social media committee, will have access to it. Our expectation is that their terms will expire, at least 2 of them in different years, so that there's always some continuity on the committee, such that people will always have some history with how it works or how it has been used. And we are happy to collaborate with the City Public Information Office. But we understand that this is a best practice around community police oversight commissions across the country, and that we need to be able to share information. And while we're really excited that these community organizations can tweet that we might be there, we'd also like to do that. And we'd like to kind of ping off each other and reach as many people as possible. And we know we need to do that on different platforms. We expect that we can do that as a responsible commission. And so we offer this to you all to look at and give us your feedback. And Francis actually did, I think, the meat of this, and I did the edits. We are a great tag team together, but so I'm like nitpicky over little things, and then Denise edits for polish. But having said that, please send us, email us your comments, your thoughts. Why don't we set a 2-week public comment, not public comment, but a commission comment period, if you will. If you guys can get us your comments within the next 2 weeks. Do you know the date? Sorry. I don't have a calendar up. So the 10th, so by September 10th, that would be super helpful.
What day is that?
It is a Tuesday.
Tuesday.
And we will then come back and present a revised resolution that reflects your input.
Thank you. This is very, very good. Thank you very much, both of you. Or any, I don't know who else was on the committee.
It's a committee of 2.
Committee of 2. Wonderful. Any more discussion? Then we will put this on the next agenda as well for another review.
Okay.
Is there anything else with the social media? Okay. Draft ICPOC brochure? Do we have one of those?
Yes.
Yeah, I'll pass them out.
Awesome.
Okay.
Ooh, look at us.
I know.
It looks so good.
I'm making progress.
Share with you.
Thank you. I'll share with you.
So nice. Oh, it's like that.
First question is, do we have any,
Are there any more that might be shared down the very end?
Yeah, we'll pass it down. We only got 4 copies.
Oh, okay.
We'll look at it.
I don't know who these people are, but it says placeholder, so that just means we know.
You did.
Can't be here. Unless they first. Okay. You and I are good. You think it should be bigger?
This is another picture, but I guess. Placement.
I like it. It's like it.
Oh, I see.
Got it.
Yeah. The pictures are.
Oh, I thought.
Mine is too.
They don't look like that.
No, it's a placement.
Yeah, okay. This is the same thing that we had.
Same thing.
Oh, yeah, this is great.
Yeah. So is everybody, you guys all have a chance to take a look at it? I mean, we're not gonna, decide on it today. It looks awesome. It looks like, yeah, I really like it. Commissioner, Councilmember Ramwali's already pointed out, a few things about the font and stuff like that. So how would we like to get feedback about this? Like, do you want us to send emails to a specific person? How would you like to receive email about this?
You guys can send an email to me and Anon. I know there's some obvious typos.
To you and who now?
Me and Anon.
Oh, okay. Great. And you would like to have that within 2 weeks as well?
That's fine.
Okay.
I apologize, Miss, is a copy going to be emailed to us?
Yeah.
Can you send a copy to us?
You will?
Via email.
Yeah, how about
Yeah,
if
she
you email,
sent that out.
email a copy and say, here it is, I need your comments back to me directly by X date. That way we all have it in our inboxes and prepared.
Thank you.
Well, they're gonna email one, so great. Anything else about that? Okay, thank you so much, Commissioner Caldwell, and I know that Commissioner Tador and Anna worked on that, so I thank you all so much. Like I said, we are coming along, and once we get our little kids in on the logo, get that on there, we are gonna be cooking with gas. All right, so moving right along, we got about 10 minutes. The deadline date for the community kickoff, I think we got that. So we've already set that. I asked that the September meeting be put on here as a discussion. We have been meeting every 2 weeks almost. And then we've got the trainings coming up in September, both with Nicola, as well as we were going to be training with Corey, but then he ended up having to cancel. But we're also doing the independent committees that are working on the individual complaints. So given all of that, and the fact that 5 of us are gonna be at Nicola, and the Thursday that the meeting is scheduled, I think. The 24th, we're gonna be coming back from Detroit. It could just be, there could be 5 of us who may or may not make that meeting. So I brought it after I looked at everything, and I said, well, we've been meeting a lot, maybe we might need to take a break and not meet in September, other than the trainings that we're doing, the individuals on leave.
Sure.
So, discussion, first of all, can we have a motion, maybe if people think that it would be okay to cancel the September meeting?
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Dang. I thought there was gonna be fighting to have the meeting.
Well, we're meeting.
Feeling kind of bad.
We're meeting every other week.
We've been meeting a lot, and I appreciate all of you. We had a lot to do to just get up and running, and now we are up and running, and so. But if we do that, then we do need to settle on the October meeting right now, so that all the stuff that needs to get in for October can get in. Yes, Denise.
Madam Chair, I just wanted to bring up that, per my doodle poll, that Thursday, October 17th was the only response I seen from the majority, and I said I received 70%. So if the commission would like to vote for Thursday, October 17th as their meeting date, then I can change that for the future. No response. Basically, we don't have enough for a quorum for Thursday, the 12th.
This is October?
So yes, October. So the October meeting can be in the basement on the 17th.
And I think it's important, as Commissioner Ramwali has brought up before, that we're consistent when we meet.
Yes.
So that people will know that, the third Thursday, whatever, we're here.
Okay.
But I do understand that coming up, we have some, trainings and other things that are going to challenge our time. So we're talking about the 17th, which is the third Thursday.
Correct.
So that, if that works for most, I say we go with that and we keep that as our.
6 or 5.
Wait.
6 o'clock.
But not here.
Not here, in the basement.
Right, the farmer's market. I won't be able to make that one, but it's all right. There's just a conflict with the
6 in the
farmer's
basement.
market.
Yes.
What's happening at the farm?
My wife chairs the farmer's market.
Oh, okay. So, can we get a motion to have the meeting on the 17th, which is the third Thursday?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? None. So the September meeting is canceled,
The 24th?
and the October meeting will be October 17th.
Yeah, 6 PM in the basement.
Will you send an appointment? around?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Now, that does not mean we cannot talk. If there are things that need to get done, I'm always, as I keep saying, available. I have a very open schedule. I've got my 83-year-old mother and 2 dogs. That's it, in terms of my time. So I am in the job, but the job is.
Would you like a cake?
No, thank you. Been there, did that. Nope, because they become teenagers.
Just for a week?
They become teenagers. Public service training count. Oh, I'm sorry, are we done with we're clear on when we're meeting, we're not meeting in September, we are meeting in October. Public service training calendar, I know Corey had to move some things for a training he had to go to.
He has, and I attached in your package the 3 dates that are available for October. And they're at the same location, but the date is Tuesday, October 1st, Tuesday, October 8th, and Tuesday, October 15th at 5 PM. No more than 5 commissioners can go per meeting to avoid a quorum.
Did we not?
So I sent that?
Yeah, did I send
Yeah.
you? I think I sent you.
I think we sent.
Okay.
Did we send you when we could make it, or that's something different?
Well, let me go back to that. So from my doodle poll, that was for September, and since Sergeant Mills is going to be out of town now, and he did not know that then, he only found that out at the end of last week, that he's going to be out of town, so he's not going to be able to provide the days that we had scheduled. So that's why I'm setting new dates.
Okay, Lisa.
Are you going to do a new doodle poll, or do you want us to?
I wanted to ask you because I didn't get a response from everyone, so if you just want to email me and let me know what is convenient for you, you have all 3 dates in front of you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Any questions about that? Comments? All right.
Thank you.
Yes. Then we're up to the update on meeting relocation.
We just said that we're going to do October 17th.
Perfect, so that's
Okay.
all taken care of,
Yes.
perfect. And we have time for public comment.
She said I could say something.
Shirley is never without comment.
No, I'm not. When you were talking about the training, I was glad that you all were saying we don't need to be trained like they do. But not just me, but our issue is, how are you going to, we know how they're trained. We've had some task force members go to the academy. I have talked to a police officer that has been trained at the academy, and there's some discrepancies in how they're trained. And so how are you going to deal with the racism that goes on in the training? You can learn what you can learn, and that's what you have to do, I understand. But don't forget, we're dealing with the racist system, and our police. I do believe a lot of people don't realize that we grew up in this racist system that has been set up before us. I didn't know for a long time. I knew something was wrong, but I didn't know just what. But I had to find out on my own. So I just want you to think of that, because what I forgot to tell you is when Michael Brown was murdered in Ferguson, we had a meeting with the police chief, Cito then, and our sheriff, Jerry Clayton, at a church. And they assured us we would never have a Ferguson here in Ann Arbor. And 2 weeks later, we had a woman killed by the police officer who still works on our police force. So it did happen. So I want you all, when you're looking at this training and overseeing whatever the police do, to take, because they're not going to show you what they do wrong. They're going to show you what they do right. So some kind of way you got to get underneath. And I think one of the ways is this young man, Commissioner Colbert, having your meetings with the community so that we can tell you what we've observed personally and go from there. But don't forget, this is the system that we're all living in, and so we got to find a way to pull our police together and our community together to deal with that. That's really kind of hidden. Not really, but we know it, but it's suggested we don't have that racist element, and we do. So we got to get in there and get our hands kind of dirty and figure all that out. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention.
Commissioner Billups?
Yeah, I appreciate your comments. I think that one of the things that we need to look at is this whole thing of implicit bias and there's trainings actually happening for that, and maybe that's a thing to look at for us as a commission group. I know the county is actually doing a bunch of trainings for its employees.
Right.
And using implicit bias, and maybe that might be something that we can think about how we might look at that as commissioners, so. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I just wanted to point that out, so thanks for letting me do that. Thanks for letting me talk. I didn't come I was in an emergency at your last meeting, so that's why I wasn't here, but I plan to be here as much as I can, as much as this old body will let me be here, but I just, we got to get to the underneath mess.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Second,
I expected Washington Community College. I know that Lawrence is in Washington Community. WPA, I will ask Denise. Denise?
Yeah.
Excuse me, please, what's WPA room? 'Cause
Washington